The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and today I'm with Deb Riegel. Deb, welcome.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so great to have you on here today, Deb. I'm really excited for this conversation. So you are a keynote speaker. You are a leadership consultant. Your clients include a lot of well-known names like Amazon and Kraft Heinz, the US Army, a whole bunch of others. Your work has been featured in the New York Times, Oprah Magazine, Bloomberg, Harvard Business Review, again, many more. You're also an author. You've written books, one recently, I believe, with your daughter. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to ask about that because that's really cool. But you also teach at the Wharton Business School, Columbia Business School. So you have that going on. And I'm wondering, like, with everything that you have going on, you know, teaching, being a professor, working, at one point you were working at a consulting firm, I believe, Boda Group,
Yeah.
correct? And then you run your own business as well,
Right.
and being an author. Like, were you doing all of those things all at one time, or it looks like there was some overlap, if not even still overlap?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of LinkedIn. It makes me look like Beyonce, right? I'm just, kicking and taking names all at the same time. I would say a better explanation for it is that I've done different things at different times. The sort of the longest tenured piece of all of that is that I've had my own consulting practice for 15 years. And so I have done other projects and been faculty for different business schools and lots of different things across those 15 years, but having my own practice where I focus on leadership communication, so presentation skills, difficult conversations, feedback skills, has been for 15 years.
Got it. Have you ever felt a pull? We talk to consultants sometime or clients in our coaching programs who also either have that opportunity to teach at university or they've done it. And sometimes there's a bit of like a little element of them wondering, like, is this the best use of their time? They're not typically earning a great deal of money, right, when they're teaching, but they enjoy doing it. And so there's a bit of tension. And I wonder, what's been your experience in terms of being a teacher, like working at these universities, but also running your own business and working at another consulting firm? Like, how have you kind of thought about where you spend your time and the pull between those?
Yeah, so I'm always thinking about leverage. So for any opportunity that comes in, I think about how can I leverage this for other things. So that could be leverage the finances. This is the right amount of money at the right time for the right project. How is this a name that I want to have on my bio or be associated with so I can leverage it to open other doors? How is this an opportunity for somebody to pay me to learn how to do something better that I can leverage and bring that benefit to other clients? So I'm always playing a long game with it. When it comes to the teaching piece, I'll just share with you a little bit about how I got involved in teaching, because I would imagine that many of your listeners can probably relate to some of these challenges. So I had never really taught at a university. And in 2008, most of us can remember that the bottom fell out of our businesses. If we were a solopreneur or had a small business, it was a really scary time. And really overnight, most of my paying clients went away. And I remember saying to my husband, Michael, am I going to have to get a real job? And he said, probably one of the most loving and supportive things that he's ever said to me, which is, just because you don't have clients doesn't mean you don't have a real job, which was like, that's how you know you married the right person. Anyway, I got a call from a colleague of mine as I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in this totally depleted economy, who said, I have a colleague who has been teaching at the business school at Peking University, what they call, the Harvard of Asia, or I would call the University of Michigan of Asia, as a Wolverine. And she has a colleague who's been teaching with her for all of these years. It's an executive MBA program. Her colleague isn't going to go. They asked me, do I want to go teach in China? And I said, that's crazy, but I know somebody crazy enough to consider it. Deb, that's you. And so I had 2 young kids at the time. My twins were little. And I thought, how can I go to China, right? I had to go for like 5 weeks. And then I realized that this was actually an economic necessity for my family, for me to go away for a little over a month and basically have the opportunity to earn in 4 or 5 weeks what I normally would have earned in a quarter. And so it was an economic decision that had very hard consequences of being away from my family. I ended up doing it for a number of years until it was no longer an economic necessity, but that gave me the opportunity to teach at Wharton Business School. And that gave me an opportunity to teach at Columbia Business School. And those gave me the opportunity to teach for Duke Corporate Ed. So that one really hard decision led to other opportunities. Those opportunities are not the greatest paying opportunities I've ever had, but I'm learning. I'm in an environment with young people, and they also are great door openers to say that you have had the opportunity to teach for Wharton or teach for Columbia or Duke.
You mentioned the word that I love, which is leverage. You've used it many times. How do you use the kind of the credentials or the experience of teaching at these schools as leverage to, let's say, land new clients or to build the business, to build a brand? I mean, of course, you can put it onto your LinkedIn, you can put it onto your website. Beyond those kind of basic steps, is there anything else that you've done that you've found helps you from a leverage perspective?
So I want to be very careful around the leverage. So I am comfortable putting it on my LinkedIn profile. I'm comfortable having those names associated with my bio. I also never want to misrepresent myself. So I'm not a professor, even though at the business school in China, they called me doctor, which, I just pretended. Okay, well, we can live with that. Why embarrass somebody in their own country, right? But I'm very careful. I don't have a PhD. I'm not a professor. I'm an instructor, as opposed to on the faculty of. And so I want to be really careful about my language so I don't blow it for me, and also so I don't blow it for other people who might be in a similar boat. But I can tell you that I found that once I was able to add Wharton, having served as an instructor for the Wharton MBA program, when I would reach out to people on LinkedIn, they would be much more likely to accept my invitation than somebody who was just associated with a consulting firm. And not that there's anything wrong with having your own business or being a consulting firm, but it was an external seal of approval. And it reminds me a little bit, and this is something that also might be interesting to your listeners as well. It also reminds me a little bit of publishing a book. So my very first book that I published, called Oy Vey Isn't a Strategy, 25 Solutions for Personal Professional Success, was a traditionally published book. I wrote a book proposal. A publisher bought it, that sort of thing. And I published it. My ego needed that external stamp of approval. And then after that, every other book that I've written thus far, I have self-published or published with an independent publishing company. And so those are the things to sort of think about as well, is how does social proof, as my coach and colleague Dory Clark would call it, so how does social proof help you? But then you actually have to have the chops.
Yeah. Let's talk about writing, because you do a lot of writing.
I do.
Harvard Business Review, Inc. magazine, Psychology Today, I'm sure a whole bunch of others, right? How do you, first of all, make time for writing when you're busy working with clients, teaching at universities, and you have family, you have twins, you have a wonderful husband with a wonderful name, same as mine, Michael.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
Because I think a lot of consultants struggle with that, right? They're busy delivering on client projects. And so the first thing that typically suffers is their marketing, is the time spent on developing their authority, kind of putting themselves out there. How do you think about that? How do you make it work?
So the same set of mind games that I play with myself to get myself to exercise is a very similar set of mind games that I play with myself when it comes to writing. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I would rather do almost anything else. I usually can find almost anything else to do other than exercise or write. And I know that it is vitally important for my health, my mental health, my physical health, the health of my business when it comes to writing. So for me, the worst case scenario would be for, my editor at Harvard Business Review or somebody else to reach out to me and say, can you write about this? I go, no. And then of course I wind up doing it. But typically the way that I come up with ideas is either something that has happened in my personal life that I realize has a business impact, an impact for my clients, or it is a theme that keeps coming up in my coaching sessions over and over again, or when I'm facilitating a workshop, this may literally be the flip chart. Remember the days of flip charts before we were all virtual, right? This is the list that we are creating on the flip chart, 16 ways to motivate somebody who doesn't want to be motivated. That flip chart that we generated as a group, becomes my article. And so I don't work hard to find topics. I let the topics come to me. So just as a recent example, as I had shared to you before we started recording, I recently moved from New York to Raleigh, North Carolina. And my husband and I are really happy here. Our dog will not walk. Like, she'll walk to the end of our driveway and back. But as our trainer pointed out, when I called her and said, help, I can't get our dog to walk, she says, will she walk with the two of you? You and your husband? I said, yes, that's so weird. Why? She said, she's a pack animal. She wants to be with her pack. She's in a new place. She's scared. She needs her pack. And all of a sudden I realized how many of us are experiencing that now, that we're missing our pack, right? We're no longer going into an office. We're not seeing our friends and family. We are missing our pack. And so in the back of my mind is, that's an article coming up. The idea came to me from my dog. And I don't mean that in like the Son of Sam, David Berkowitz way, like my dog is talking to me, but my dog is talking to me.
I love that. I mean, that's a great kind of breakdown of how you come up with content that I think is very relevant and valuable for everyone to apply. How do you make the time? Like, do you approach it? Do you have, for example, Tuesday at 8 a.m. is writing time, or do you just fit into the schedule as it comes up? Or is there any kind of recommendation that you find around?
I really write in the cracks of my day. So I do better when I have inspiration, right? So that article that my dog has basically written for me, don't tell my editors, is something that at some point there'll be a crack in my day when I don't have other writing projects, and I will just bang it out. I particularly like it. So for example, I sent a pitch to my editor at HBR about a week ago. She said, yes, our team loves it, write it. So I know that I can't really let that lie fallow for a month. Like, that's going to undermine my credibility. But other publications, I get to publish whenever I come up with an idea. So that could take me a week. It could take me a month. It could take me 2 months. So having external accountability is very helpful for me. I am not going to let my editor at HBR down. Doing it without accountability means I just sort of wait until I'm watching a really, boring episode of something and go, oh, let me just take my laptop out and see what I can bang out.
How has writing actually helped your business? What has been kind of the financial impact, not necessarily in dollars, attribution, but just more in terms of, have you seen a tangible improvement and kind of growth in the business that you can trace back to the writing that you've done? While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
I don't know that I can confirm it with data. However, these are my operating assumptions around how writing has helped my business. So first of all, when I am sending in a proposal, right? So a company wants me to do a series of workshops around leadership communication, and I'm sending in a proposal. I believe that me sending in links to all of the articles that I've written on this topic in Harvard Business Review, Inc., Psychology Today, is going to give me the edge over somebody with a similar proposal who does not have content and social proof. That's number one. I can't prove it, but I believe it. And the belief of it, the mindset, actually makes me more eager to write proposals. And I'm sure everybody on this call hates writing proposals. I go like, oh yeah, I want to show you what I'm made of. So that's number one. Number two is I repurpose my content a tremendous amount. So many of the publications I write for I own the copyright. So for example, about a year and a half ago, a company called Udemy for Business, which some of you may know, reached out to me and said, we are starting a new series of micro-learning, like little bites and bits. We'd like you to launch our first course. It's going to be a communications course, 52 topics, right? One a week. And I went, 52 topics. And I went, hold on, that content already exists because I've been writing for a long time. So I was able to take content that I had produced for free and turn it into a marketable, saleable product. And now every month I get a check from Udemy for something that I wrote for free, but now I'm repurposing. So that helps as well. I actually got an email today, even though I've written a number of books where I've often repurposed content. I got an email today from a company that I will not name that says like, hey, let's talk about a book proposal. And that's based on the writing that I have done. So having the content, have an external seal of approval, social proof, having so much content that I can make available for free and also for sale, and now potentially a book coming out, I think is really helpful.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching Program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching.
What else has had a big impact on the growth of your business from a marketing or lead generation perspective? You mentioned LinkedIn in terms of maybe connecting with people, but I don't know if you have a strategy around that, or like, what are you doing aside from teaching at universities, writing for different publications, writing books? Is there anything else that you're doing that you find actually has helped the business to grow?
So it's so funny that you use the word strategy. And I think back to my original book, Oy Vey Isn't a Strategy. And I guess the subtitle should be like, but I don't really have a better one. So I wouldn't say that I have a lot of strategies. My approach is to run experiments. So every single thing that I've ever done in work and in life, I have had the mindset of this is an experiment. Sometimes experiments succeed and sometimes they don't. And then you learn something incredibly helpful. And so I'm constantly running experiments and I hold that mindset. So that's been really helpful. I would say probably among the most helpful things that I have done for my business is operate from a place of almost unbridled professional generosity. And here's what I mean by it. Very early on in my career, I had somebody who I guess didn't want me to come into the consulting space and had said some version of, I don't think you have what it takes. And I was like, what? And my husband said, ooh, they think you're competition. I went, really? Okay. And as soon as that happened, I said, I am going to be as generous as I can possibly afford to be with anybody, especially people who want to start as consultants, and in particular, especially women who want to come into the consulting space, which means that when people say, hey, would you be willing to share with me the secrets of what you did? I say, absolutely. Let me tell you what I did. Let me tell you what I did that I would do again. Let me tell you what I did that I would never do again, but maybe it would work for you. I am happy to talk to anybody about my path. In addition, anytime somebody calls me and is looking for me as a resource for something related to presentation or communication skills, I almost always ask them, hey, are there other experts or resources that you're looking for? Because I don't have a huge network, but I have a very well curated network, and I would be more than happy to connect you to anybody in my network who I think could be a good fit for you. And so I'm constantly making connections, and it is my honor and pleasure to do that. And I think that's been one of the ways.
How does that help to grow your business though? So, I mean, that sounds wonderful.
Because then people think of me, right? Deb, you were so helpful. Deb, you were so generous. Deb, as soon as somebody reached out to me and said, hey, do you know a keynote speaker for this? I thought of how kind you were to me, and I wanted to repay the favor. And I believe worst case scenario, I'm putting good karma into the world. Best case scenario, it is coming back to me 1,000-fold. And I'm willing to settle for worst case scenario, which is just putting good karma into the world.
Definitely. And given what's going on in the world right now, right, it's a very interesting time. A lot of uncertainty, especially, I mean, we're recording this on a pretty big day in the US, November 3rd. How have you changed your business, or what shifts have you made due to the pandemic, due to just what's going on with COVID?
Yeah. So up until now in March, I was traveling 60 to 70% of the time. So I think that's sort of the clearest shift that has happened. I was on a plane or a train almost every week. I have not really gone anywhere since March other than moving from New York to Raleigh, but I did that in our car. And so taking all of my programs, whether it is training or coaching or leadership development program, taking everything virtual has been the single biggest shift. I mean, in olden times, this would not be considered work footwear, but, this is my go-to work footwear now. And I promise not to take off any more clothes in our interview. But the single biggest thing has been going virtual. The second biggest shift that I made was one of the books that I wrote that we had mentioned before. I wrote a book with my daughter, Sophie, who's a sophomore at Duke University. We wrote a book a year ago called Overcoming Overthinking, 36 Ways to Tame Anxiety for Work, School, and Life. And a year ago, it was a topic we were both really interested in. We were personally touched by anxiety professionally, and it felt like an important topic. In the last 7 months, it has become the topic, helping people deal with anxiety, stress, overwhelm, prevent burnout, all of those things. And so we put together a series of mental health webinars. So how to help yourself, how to talk to your colleagues about it, how to talk to kids and teens about anxiety. And it has became a brand new offering, some of which we do together, sort of an intergenerational approach, some of which we each do independently, but having a brand new offering that is meeting a market need in a really urgent way is one of the other ways in which we've really shifted.
And talking about that book, I mean, I saw it looks like your daughter actually wrote a book on that subject before the...
Yes.
Okay.
She wrote a book called Don't Tell Me to Relax, One Teen's Journey to Survive Anxiety and How You Can Too.
I love that. I agree. I think there's a lot of anxiety right now, right? A lot of people just don't know what to do. There's so many concerns, so much uncertainty. Based on all the best practices and all the trainings that you give and the work that you've done, is there a step or a recommendation that you would offer that you think would touch the majority of people who might be feeling some anxiety right now or some fear of the unknowns? Is there anything that's like a go-to step that you would look at or suggest that people kind of think about to help them in case they might be feeling a bit of anxiety right now or a bit of uncertainty or a bit of fear that might be holding them back from doing the things they know that they really should be doing?
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. So number one is welcome to those of us who have had chronic lifelong anxiety. Welcome. Come on in. We're very kind and welcoming. I would also say that there has never been a better and more open time for people to talk about this, right? So we all know that there's often stigma related to mental health and mental illness. The stigma is falling fast, which I think is one of the very few benefits of this time that we're in. And so help is readily and easily available. I would say, one of the things that comes from the world of emotional intelligence is the idea that emotions are data. And so emotions are not something to be ignored, not something to be pushed down. But if you are feeling sad, overwhelmed, terrified, whatever it is, there's information there. Go get it, right? Don't ignore the source of data. Go get it. And then I would say, find at least one person to talk to. And I often cite the guideline from NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, that says if you are going to share with somebody that you're struggling, who should you be looking for? And they cite two criteria. The first is that you want somebody who you trust, right? That you really interpersonally trust and trust to maintain your confidence. And the second is it should be somebody who is emotionally intelligent, who recognizes that emotions serve a purpose and that things like this too shall pass or you think you have it bad, other people have it worse are not helpful strategies, and somebody who will really empathize and be there and strategize with you if that's what you want.
Got it. In one of the sites where you're listed, it has kind of a comment from you or thought that one of the things that you learned was that asking for and accepting help is actually a sign of strength, not of weakness. And you said like for someone in a helping profession, it took you maybe longer than you would have liked to kind of reach that conclusion yourself. Can you just speak a little bit about like where that mindset comes from or just what that experience or that learning means to you and how you think others could maybe benefit from also identifying that?
Well, the first thing that I actually think about is our reciprocity bias. So we have a bias to do to others, right? So similar to my professional generosity, it comes back to me, if not directly, then indirectly. And when you ask somebody for help, it is most often the case that they are honored, right? Honored that you would think of them and that you would come to them, especially if you are somebody who considers yourself self-directed, self-motivated, successful, any of those things. Somebody who I admire is coming to me for help as well. I often think about it from the perspective of, I know how to do what I know how to do very well, right? I'm an expert in my subject areas. I am as a relative expert in parenting my children. I don't know that I have it mastered, but I don't know that anybody does it better than my husband and I do. In order for me to be an expert in the things that matter most, I can't be an expert in everything, right? And so if I am going to release the fact that I want to be an expert in these areas because they're the most important, it means the whole rest of the universe are places that I'm not an expert in. And solving my own mental health problems is not an area that I'm an expert in. And I'm lucky that there are people in the world who have chosen to make that their pool of expertise.
Are there certain things that you initially maybe tried just in your mind? It's like, oh, I'll figure these out myself, or I don't want to ask someone, or I don't want to ask for help because it might demonstrate or show that I'm not necessarily an expert in that area. Is there any example of like where you've done that in your own business and that when you did reach out to get help, it actually really benefited you?
So I would say that probably one of the most surprising ways in which I get business is through my personal Facebook page. I don't have a business Facebook page, or if I do, I haven't posted anything on them in years. I might have them and I don't know about them. On my personal Facebook page, I am very honest and open about the things in my work and life that I'm struggling with, like very honest and open. I have 3 anxiety disorders. I'm constantly struggling to keep my weight manageable. I worry about my kids at college. I have other things that I worry about that I'm challenged by that I don't have solved. And I put it all out there. And people don't see me as, oh, she's is a problem or has a problem. They go, oh, she's relatable. She's just like us.
Yeah.
And that actually draws people to me. And I get plenty of public messages and even more private messages of people saying, thank you for sharing your struggles with us. It really makes us feel not alone and it demonstrates bravery. And by the way, could you help me with this problem? And then I get hired. I'm
so glad that you're sharing that. I released a video recently that was just called The Power of Vulnerability, and how, being more vulnerable, being more open for a lot of people. Like I remember back in the day, kind of early years of building my first consulting business, I want to always look like very professional and not say the wrong things and just kind of really give that professional image. And I would never share anything that I thought maybe was a bit of an insecurity or a vulnerability. And what I learned from over the years of interviewing many people like yourself and just kind of going through different experiences myself is that actually when you do open yourself up and you share some of those things that maybe aren't your strengths or more open and vulnerable, that actually people are attracted to you. It's exactly like you shared. And so I think
Absolutely.
It's an important message for people to take in and hopefully embrace.
I think so. And I've gotten a tremendous amount of wonderful feedback, but more importantly, my stories have served as an invitation to others to share their stories with me and then hopefully the world. And if I can put more stories of people living real lives out there, that strikes me as doing good in the world.
Yeah, definitely. So Deb, I want to thank you so much for coming on here today.
Oh, thank you.
And before wrapping up though, I want to make sure that people can learn more about you and your work. So where's the best place for them to go?
Probably the best place for them to go is DeborahGraysonRiegel.com. And I'm sure you will spell it somewhere unless you need me to spell it.
Yeah, we'll link it up in the show notes. They can just go and click.
Yeah. Awesome. And LinkedIn, right? So all of my articles that I write, I post them on LinkedIn. So that's a really great way to be in touch with me.
Wonderful. Well, again, thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.